Hi everyone, in this video we're going to look at configuring and managing Active Directory. Active Directory allows network administrators to create and manage domains, users and objects or other devices on a network within a network. For example, an administrator can create a group of users and give them specific access privileges to certain directories on the server. So basically Active Directory ni macam a big internal computer or IT department for a university, for example. Dia yang jaga Wi-Fi password, jaga username and password users, what are the emails, what are the rights untuk a certain user masuk ke dalam sistem contohnya. But the name Active Directory is basically proprietary to Microsoft Windows, and it is included in most Windows Server operating system. Dan dia dijadikan sebagai sesuatu proses dan servis. So kita kena turn on this service untuk manage kita punya big directory. So this is basically a primary feature of Windows Server, which is a major feature for an operating system of a network. And its primary function is to facilitate the authentication and authorization of users or the members and the resources within a particular Active Directory domain. So one major task of implementing an Active Directory is basically to manage authentication. So authentication is the process that addresses the question of who you are. It's basically you want to verify lah user yang nak masuk ke dalam sistem kamu. So it's done by obtaining a valid username and password on an internet or intranet system. Once a user is authenticated, the system confirms that you match the identity of whoever you claim to be. So we need to have a master list, for example, of the users and their valid password. So the Active Directory feature ni manage benda ni lah. And dia juga manage cara bagaimana users tu boleh hantar dia punya authentication details, how the users want to enter their username and password into the system so that the Active Directory can verify that this is yes, indeed the correct user and it has a valid username and password. Okay, after that sebenarnya ada satu task lagi which is authorization. After you have done authentication, it still does not confirm whether you are authorized to access the resource that you might be trying to access. So you might have some rights or some access to a particular resource in the system, tetapi dia tak guarantee that if you have the correct username and password, you can have access to other resources which have been selected as restricted. So itu dalam task authorization. So that brings us to the next task or feature in Active Directory, which is authorization. And this basically covers what can you do. If you have been successful in the authentication process, now it comes to the authorization process by verifying whether a user is allowed to access a particular requested resource. So access kepada a particular resource ni termasuklah access to any part of an application or specified data sets. So let's look at the difference between a process and services. A service is a process that runs in the background and it does not interact with the desktop. So basically a service is a process that is able to run in the background without any human intervention. So it performs automated tasks, responds to hardware events, or it may just run in the background for listening of any other data requests for other software. So selalunya services ni kita akan load automatically at startup if we configure them, and they will be running in the background without the user actually realizing that it is running in the background. On the other hand, an application is a program that users interact with on the desktop. So actually, if you are running an application, it might have several processes running in the background simultaneously. So one example is when you have browsers such as Google Chrome, you have it running, you are interacting with it, but at the background, it has some processes that is running in the background by opening several tabs. So dalam Windows, macam ada benda that is running in the background. So this is a service lah. Contoh paling senang yang lain yang more relevant. For example, you have a touchpad in your laptop. So bila kita login Windows, kadang ada satu proses yang handle gestures. For example, two finger scroll. So itu dipanggil proses biasa. So walaupun you are scrolling or you use that finger on the touchpad, but it is recognizing a gesture. So that is a particular service that is running in the background. Walaupun you tak trigger apa-apa, sometimes you just auto scroll to carry some meaning, but the Windows service is still running in the background to recognize your two finger scroll. An application is the one that you interact with directly. But sometimes it actually depends on a service that is already running in the background. So for example, if you want to print something, you use the Microsoft Word and you want to print, and you click the print button. So that is actually using an application to print something. But in order for the Microsoft Word to recognize the printer, it actually has already a service running in the background called a print spooler, for example, untuk dia multitask, ambil dokumen ini, feedkan kepada your printer settings, usually your default printer. So dia dah ada service running in the background that already recognize which is your default printer and how you want to feed your Word document into a proper format that can be printed to your printer. Next, let's look at the Active Directory terms. So in Active Directory, we have a few terms. One is a domain, which is defined as a logical group of network objects, for example, computers, users, devices, and they share the same Active Directory database. So you can view a domain like a digital neighborhood lah. So you ada a type of community dalam digital neighborhood ni. It could be computers, it could be users, it could be other devices, for example, tablets, it could be printers, and they all share the same database, which is the Active Directory. So within the Active Directory, it has forests and trees, which are ways of representing multiple domains. So a tree is a collection of one or more domains and domain trees in a contiguous namespace. So we've learned about this namespace in DNS before, and it is linked in a transitive trust hierarchy. So katalah in your point of view, kita ada UiTM Melaka yang ada kampus Jasin, Alor Gajah dan juga kampus Bandaraya. So setiap satu kampus tu, you ada dia punya own domain lah, right? Tetapi all these campuses belong to the same tree. For example, you have jasin.uitm.edu.my or alogajah.uitm.edu.my. So you can consider that they have a trust between each other. So tu maksud transitive trust hierarchy. So because they belong to the same tree, jadi dia pun ada trust between each other lah. And also if you have shaalam.uitm.edu.my, for example, since they belong to the same parent in the tree, which is uitm.edu.my. So they have the same trust hierarchy. So when you have a lot of trees, you have the top of the structure with a forest. So forest is a collection of trees that share a common global catalog, directory schema, logical structure, and directory configuration. Okay, so basically kita boleh kata forest adalah level yang paling atas sekali bagi sekumpulan trees yang banyak ini. So this is another example diagram of a tree and a forest. So for example, we have one tree, which is secure.itfreetraining.com. And at the top level, you have the itfreetraining.com. So that could be the forest, and one of the tree in the forest is secure.itfreetraining.com. So why do we need to have so many domains? Because we can easily create some separation. So for example, early version of a particular Active Directory, or we can divide our company based on structure or based on politics. So when we want to scale, for example, we want to create smaller version of our organization, or we want to expand our organization, it is much easier. So for example, first we had itfreetraining.com as the root of the tree. Then we had one department, which is secure.itfreetraining.com. So that is one tree. Next, we can expand our forest by expanding or creating another tree, which is sales.itfreetraining.com. So let's say this company or organization has scaled into multiple branches. This could be a particular schema for their Active Directory. So it's called the IT Free Training Forest, which is at the root level. And they divide their organization into 6 domains. So we have the itfreetraining.com, we have the secure.itfreetraining.com, sales.itfreetraining.com, and so on. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So under the same forest, they share the same Active Directory schema. However, we have 2 trees. One is under the IT Free Training. Okay, in here we have the 5 domains, and the other one we have the high cost training tree. So 2 trees within one forest, and in one tree they have 5 domains, while the other tree they have 1 domain. You can have other kinds of configuration in your Active Directory. For example, the first diagram, you only have 1 domain and 1 forest in that domain, and also 1 tree. So maybe for a small scale company, it is possible to do this. Okay, but when you grow bigger, you might have 3 domains in 1 forest and 1 tree. Or if you grow even bigger, we might have the example that we have just now, which is 1 forest, 2 trees, and 6 domains. And if we want to scale to an even bigger expansion, maybe we have 2 forests and 3 trees within the 2 forests, and also 7 domains. So there are variations of how we want to configure the Active Directory schema. So what are the Active Directory services? So first we have domain services. So in this category, it stores the centralized data and manages communication between users and domains. Also includes login authentication and search functionality. The next service is certificate service, which creates, distributes, and manages secure certificates for your authentication. Then we have LDAP or Lightweight Directory Service. So this supports directory-enabled applications using the LDAP protocol. Then we have Directory Federation, which provides single sign-on to authenticate a user in multiple web applications using a single session. Finally, we have the rights management, which protects copyrighted information by preventing unauthorized use and distributed of digital content. So one of the services listed just now is certificate service. An SSL certificate or a secure certificate is a file installed on a secure web server that identifies a website. So for example, we have been using this when we do our banking using a browser. So a particular organization can have turn on the certificate service to make sure that the company can get a secure authentication. So this digital certificate establishes the identity and authenticity of the company or merchant so that online shoppers can trust that the website is secure and reliable. So again, for example, if we do banking or maybe online shopping, this is the way that we authenticate our transactions. So in order to verify that these sites are legit, the companies and their websites are verified by a third-party certificate authenticator. So for example, VeriSign or Thought. Once the verification company establishes the legitimacy of an organization and the associated website, they will issue an SSL certificate, and is installed on the web server and will be viewable when a user enters a secure area of the website. So konsep SSL ni juga kita boleh deploy, for example, if you are using the Wi-Fi authenticator. So actually these SSL certificates need to be renewed because they expire. So it usually expires every 1 to 3 years. So for some additional information about the Active Directory, here are some of the links that's been prepared by the resource person of this subject.